One of the most knowledgeable and insightful media members within the college basketball landscape is Andy Katz of NCAA.com. Andy joins us now from his home in Connecticut. And Andy, I'm going to start with a very simple yet powerful question for you. What has the last week plus been like for you?
Wow, Mitch. I mean, it's obviously incredibly surreal, like it is for every other American and every other citizen. I was in Indy a week ago today. I was there for the end of the Big Ten tournament and talked to Kevin Warren for Big Ten Network. Was there the night before for the Nebraska, Indiana, Minnesota Northwestern games, and Fred Hoiberg not feeling well and all of us being completely angst-ridden over that and not knowing what was going on there. And yet days before that, the week before that, I was in these packed arenas from Maryland to I did a FS1 game at Providence, went down and saw Dayton, then I did Georgetown Nova, then I did Maryland, Michigan, then I was out in WCC for Vegas for Gonzaga's victory, last second shot from St. Mary's over BYU. So I saw all this great events, and then it comes to a screeching halt, which it's funny how things have changed literally by the minute. But at one point last week, I'm hearing from Ivy League coaches saying this is a travesty that their tournament was canceled, to now no one even blinking an eye that the NCAA tournament was canceled because it clearly was the right decision because everything is shut down. So it's hard to keep up. Everything has completely just changed from one day, 1 hour to the next.
So obviously you're still in touch with people around the landscape of college basketball and probably some of the student athletes as well. But what's been the overarching message from everything that's transpired really since, like he's talked about, a week ago, really today, from where we're at now?
Well, I think, it's sort of this whole grieving process, if you will, for maybe lack of a better term, of everyone going through different stages. And there was sort of anger last week and shock, now acceptance, and now reflection. And so that's what I'm doing right now. I mean, I just put out sort of for every team, and we'll have Penn State here. We're going alphabetically. My sort of 5 phase for Big Ten Network of every team in the Big Ten. My 5 sort of either moments or memories from the season. What awards are doing now in terms of they're still going ahead with putting together or announcing their All-Americans and their awards. They're obviously just not going to give anything out in person. We just unveiled a March Madness moment bracket at a podcast with various people from that bracket, from Danny Ainge, who had the basket from BYU Notre Dame in 81, to Roger Powell, who was on the 05 Illinois team, to Dan Wetzel from Yahoo, who wrote the book on the 1966 Texas Western team. So I try to sort of cherry pick various people to talk to for our podcast. And, so we're trying to engage the fans and trying to also be sensitive to what's happening. So at this juncture, while everyone's at home, just trying to give people something to engage in and digest while we're all in this time of the unknown.
I want to shift back towards this Penn State team. Obviously, when we talked back in, I think it was October at Big Ten Media Days, you were super high on this Penn State men's basketball team with everything that they had coming with Lamar Stevens, Big Mike, and you can go on. And you were like, this is going to be an NCAA tournament team. Not many other national media members were necessarily on the train at that time, but we saw what transpired throughout the season. At what moment, I should say, do you think it was in your head that, all right, Penn State's an NCAA tournament lock?
Where I felt really good about my early prediction, if you will, was I'm going to go all the way back to that road win against Georgetown in the Gavitt game. And that was an 81-66 win on the road in D.C. That was, hugely significant. I thought their bounce-back win after their sort of stunning collapse against Ole Miss in New York, when they came back and smacked Syracuse by 21, that was another indicator. I didn't read too much into the road loss at Ohio State because I know you know this, but people I think forget that Lamar Stevens didn't play, I think, the last dozen minutes because he fouled out.
Yeah.
So that was, to me, a bit of an outlier because then after that, look here, I think they ripped off 5 in a row. And then they went through their skid that literally every Big Ten team went through this season. Everyone had a losing streak. It probably is disappointing that they just didn't get a chance for one more game because I do think in the Big Ten tournament and then the NCAA tournament, we would have seen a different Penn State or maybe a Penn State that we saw earlier in the season. I think it would have felt a little bit more like a clean slate. I know they weren't 100% healthy at the end, but still, it just would have been nice for them to at least have that opportunity to end a little bit more on a high.
Well, I think, and you're talking about Lamar Stevens being 7 points away from that all-time scoring record here at Penn State. So I think, like you talked about, there's so many countless different things that obviously every team around the country, every sport just wants that one more game. But obviously the situation is what the situation is. But when it comes to Pat Chambers, you also talked about him back at Big Ten Media Days, and you really carried that throughout the season. But what can you say about the job that he did throughout the 2019-20 season?
Well, I thought he was great. I mean, like a lot of these coaches in the Big Ten that had to deal with these losing skids, you have to keep the locker room together. You have to make sure that you stress, that this is a marathon and we're going to get through this. And it's easy to get down on these skids, but this was such a different year in the Big Ten where you just could not look at it as a, quote, normal year, that it was okay. I mean, no one would say it was okay to lose 2 or 3 in a row, but I don't think there was not a negative perception to it because, I mean, I could be wrong. I'm thinking off the top of my head. I feel like every team, literally every team in the Big Ten had a losing skid of 2 or more. Maybe I'm wrong on that because I haven't checked it, but I feel like that's the case. And that just showed the strength and depth of this league.
When it comes to the future direction of this Penn State program, and I know there's going to be a lot of question marks as far as college basketball and college sports in general over the next couple of weeks and months and everything that entails, but eventually one day we're going to get back to people being on that court and playing games again. So when that time does come for this Penn State program, how do you look for them to carry that momentum that they had this season into what's to come?
Well, I mean, okay, so you can't show an NCAA tournament run to recruits and fans, but, we all saw what occurred this season. There was excitement. There was energy. I thought the game at the Plesser was great. I hope they can do that every year in some form or fashion. I covered the game at the Garden that I know Penn State has played in the past. Moving around, I think, is great. And there's no reason why there should not be optimism going forward, despite the loss, mainly of Lamar Stevens.
Andy, appreciate your time and stay safe, all right?
All right, same to you, Mitch. Appreciate it.